The spot that I'm actually going to for the main story, you guys see that fence there on the hill? That's one of the graveyards. There's two of them side by side, that one and another one over here. And this one over here is the one that I'm headed for, up on a hill. It's about 150 feet up the hill from where you park at, so I got a little bit of a climb. Not too bad, you know, used to much worse. Well, I found the graveyard. Found a little hidden little nook to park the Mustang. Y'all ain't gonna believe the hill that I just came up in the Mustang. I had that thing straight full wheeling all the way up the hill digging. Get up here. Very steep, very narrow, and in not the best shape. It's got a few washouts here and there. All right, I gotta go find a grave here and tell a story. Y'all should be a really interesting story, guys. For those of you who like history, like these kinds of stories we tell, this should be a really good one. How y'all doing today? My name is Leo, for those of you who don't know, and I will be your humble host today. We are out in Kimper, Kentucky, just outside the Phelps area, a very small community called Kimper. Came out today for a very special reason. We came a long ways for a very special person. Some of you who follow our, Legends, Hillbilly Files, Legends and Locations page, if you've heard anything even remotely about the Hatfield-McCoy feud, today's subject will be a name that you most certainly recognize. He was not in the feud, but his father was one of the most infamous feud characters of all. This man right here, Frank Phillips Jr.
Bad Frank Phillips was a deputy sheriff, freelance gunman, logger, outlaw, an integral part of the infamous Hatfield-McCoy feud in the late 19th century.
Now, a lot of you, may, whether you just follow the Hatfields and McCoys, or if you follow our channel, that sort of thing, you'll recognize the name, Frank Phillips. He was a Kentucky. He worked for the sheriff's department in Kentucky during the Hatfield-McCoy feud, and he was the person that he was basically Kentucky sent him across state lines. He would cross state lines to go after Hatfield. By all accounts, Frank Phillips Sr., this guy's father, by all accounts, he had a particular reputation. We'll just put it that way. He actually said himself that he wasn't really, basically, I don't remember, I'm paraphrasing here, that it probably wasn't safe to be around him when he was drinking. And, that's probably, very true. His son here, by all accounts, was the direct opposite. Now, you guys have heard the saying that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, in this case, folks, the apple seems to have fallen light years away from the tree. Anyone who's raised, I was raised poor. I'm not ashamed to admit I was raised poor. Anyone who was raised poor, you've probably seen a lot of stuff, when you were younger. By age 12, I'd seen a lot of stuff that kids probably shouldn't have been, around. But, you know how it is. And I'm sure that back in the day, young Frank here, he probably saw a lot too. You've got a father he's sort of got this Dirty Harry kind of reputation. I will uphold the law no matter how many laws I have to break to do it. Sort of a Dirty Harry kind of mentality. 1890 to 1926. He was the son of Bad Frank and Mary Frances Rowe Phillips, Frank's first wife. Frank later married one of my relatives. So I guess, this Frank here, I'm not related to him, but I guess I would be related to his siblings, wouldn't I? His younger siblings. So, so it's kind of hits home. You'd be surprised how many, you get out doing these stories and stuff, how many you're actually related to. But anyhow, Frank and Mary, they had 5 kids together. And I'm going to read you from an appeal that regarding Frank's death, and says a lot about Frank's life as well. This court appeal has a lot of details about Frank Jr.'s death at age 36, which is actually about the same age that Bad Frank was when he also died from a gunshot wound, though his death was from gangrene that followed the gunshot, and Frank Jr.'s death was very instant. The case itself was decided June 27th of 1928. And, the guys appealed it, and I'm going to read you some stuff from the appeal. Now, 2 brothers named Roland Branham and Sylvan Branham were indicted in Pike County Court for the murder of Frank Phillips Jr. In the trial of the case, they were both found guilty, and their punishment was determined to be life in prison, which brings about the appeal that we're talking about today. Frank Phillips Jr., he was a deputy sheriff here in Pike County. He followed in his father's footsteps in that regard. But Frank Jr., he was employed by a local coal company at Greasy Creek. On December 13th, 1926, the brothers were together in the coal camp where Phillips was employed as a deputy sheriff. Frank Phillips came out of the coal company's office, and about the time he reached the sidewalk, the brothers approached him. Roland Branham drew his pistol on Phillips and said, "I understand you're the meanest man in town." Phillips said no. Roland Branham said, "Grab your gun," and the shooting followed. According to the proof for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the first 3 shots were fired from a small pistol held by Roland Branham. 2 shots were then fired from the larger pistol held by Frank Phillips Jr. here. Phillips and Branham fought and were in a clinch on the ground. In the scuffle, Sylvan Branham got a hold of Phillips' pistol and shot Phillips with his own gun. There was a small bullet hole in his body and a large bullet hole in his head. His skull was also crushed by a blow from Roland Branham's pistol. After that, Sylvan Branham gets his pistol out and he shoots him. Phillips, obviously he dies right there on the scene. Now see, what brought this about 3 months prior to this, Phillips had arrested Sylvan Branham for being drunk in public. Just something as simple as that. After this, when that happened, Sylvan Branham had said that he was going to get even with Phillips, that he would let no man do him like that. Both of the Branhams had been drinking at the time of the murder. The evidence for the defendants was basically that the Branhams approached him and Phillips said, "What's your business here?" and put his hand around behind his back. Branham asked him what he meant and began to get his gun out. When Branham saw he was bringing his gun out, he started to draw his pistol, but before he could get his pistol out, Phillips shot him. He then fired and they clinched. They also showed that Phillips, when told of Branham's threat, had said that he could shoot just as quick as Branham and that if the company didn't fire him and make him leave, he was going to kill him anyway. Phillips, obviously, he was in fact a deputy sheriff. And if the evidence for the prosecution is true, then he was attacked and killed simply because of his acts as a police officer. The only cause cited by either side for the bad feelings existing between the two parties was the arrest of Sylvan Branham by Phillips several months earlier. The evidence, it actually showed that the defendants knew that Phillips was a police officer and attacked him for that reason before he said or did anything. The verdict of the jury had been fully warranted by the evidence. Judgment affirmed. And here lies Frank. Now the thing about it, justice was served. Frank's killers, they were brought to justice, but unfortunately justice is for the living. Justice doesn't do anything to the dead. Frank is still here regardless. But I just thought that it was, to me, it's very interesting, the contrast between their styles, I guess you could say, their methods. I guess you guys get where I'm going here. From all accounts, from what we can find, we can't find anything, we didn't find anything negative about the man. The only thing that we found was that he was simply trying to do his job to the best of his ability and ran into a couple brothers who were drunk and held a grudge. It was just a simple public intoxication. These days it's just a fine. Back then you probably just got, put in jail overnight and they turn you loose the next morning, that sort of thing. But the Branhams held a grudge. They held a grudge and they acted on it. And that's where the key comes in, as acting on it. You can think what you want, you can feel what you want, you can believe what you want, but when it comes down to your actions, that's what matters. People tell their children every day, it's the same exact lesson that you tell your children every single day 1,000 times. 2 simple words: be good. I just thought that was very poignant, Apparently sometimes the apple does fall far from the tree. Case in point, Frank Phillips Jr. Rest in peace, Frank. You did your job well. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You did nothing wrong. And by all accounts, was a really great guy. Strange, isn't it? Told you it was a very interesting story with a lot of twists. But anyway, I guess I'm gonna go ahead since I'm here. This is a beautiful old graveyard. There's a few new ones here and there, but a lot of these are 100 years old or better. So I'm going to look around, and there's some others here that I want to document while we're here. Anyway, guys, appreciate y'all coming along. Hope you enjoyed our little story today. Pretty scenery, beautiful mountains, pretty weather. Y'all have a really good day. And from the grave of Frank Phillips Jr., this is Leo with the Hillbilly Files. Check this out. Came back to the car to get a battery for the GoPro. Do y'all see what I see? Do you see it? Huh? Hang on. About a 4-foot timber rattler laying right there. Ooh, he's mad, boy. He is mad as hell. He's huge too, guys. He's big. He's big. Oh, watch him puff up, man. This is not cool, guys. Look at that. Wow. I'm gonna leave our little buddy alone. I'm gonna go do something else.